Have you ever felt like you were living in your own home, but somehow you did not truly belong there? Imagine being charged rent by your own child, the person you raised with love and care. It feels like a betrayal, a deep cut to your heart. But what if there was more beneath the surface? What if the truth was hidden, waiting to be discovered? I did not expect my son to turn against me. I did not expect to have to remind him that the deed to the house was still in my name. This is a story of pain, confusion, and hurt, but also of hidden strength, quiet power, and the courage to stand up for oneself. Before we jump back in, tell me where you are tuning in from. And if this story touches your heart, please subscribe, because tomorrow I have saved something truly special just for you. My name is Helen. I am 62 years old. And until recently, I believed I had raised a kind and thoughtful son. I live in a quiet suburb in a 2-story house with a small rose garden in the front yard. I bought this home with my late husband nearly 35 years ago. Every brick, every corner holds a memory. It is not just a house, it is my home, my history, and my comfort. After my husband passed, I spent many years alone. But when my son, Jacob, asked if he and his wife could move in for just a little while, I said yes. I did not hesitate. Of course, I said yes. That is what family does. They moved in after Jacob lost his job. He said it would be temporary. I told him not to worry. I even cooked dinner for them every evening and tried not to make noise when they worked from home. I respected their space. At first, it felt nice to have laughter in the house again. Their voices, their footsteps, even their mess in the kitchen, it reminded me of the years when Jacob was a little boy. But slowly, things began to feel different. At dinner, they spoke in whispers. My name was not always included in conversations. They shut their door more often. There were glances between them that I did not understand. Still, I reminded myself this was temporary. We were a family. Everything would settle down. I spent my mornings tending to the roses, folding their laundry, and baking Jacob's favorite lemon bread. I wanted to believe I was helping. I wanted to believe I was still needed, but something inside me had started to shift. A quiet voice in the back of my mind whispered, "Pay attention." At the time, I ignored it because this was my son. My only child. The one I gave everything for. How could I ever believe he would hurt me? But even in calm waters, the storm begins with a single ripple. It was a Thursday afternoon when I first noticed the change. It was not loud or obvious. It was quiet, like a draft under a closed door. You cannot see it, but you can feel it brushing against your skin. I was standing at the kitchen sink, washing a few dishes. The house was mostly silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the old wall clock. Jacob and his wife, Amanda, had just come back from the grocery store. I could hear the sound of bags rustling and cupboard doors opening and closing. Then I heard it, a voice, Amanda's, low and sharp. "She is always here. I thought you said she would go out more." There was a pause. I froze, my hands still in the warm water. I was not trying to eavesdrop. The house simply carried sound in a certain way. Jacob replied, his voice soft but clear. "Just give it time. She means well." Amanda's reply came quickly, "But this is not what we agreed on. We need space." I stood there, my heart suddenly louder than the clock behind me. I knew I should not feel hurt, but I did. I dried my hands slowly and stepped away from the sink, trying to pretend I had heard nothing. I did not want to make it awkward. I did not want to be a burden. Later that evening, during dinner, Amanda barely spoke to me. She pushed her food around the plate and excused herself early. Jacob stayed a little longer. He smiled, but it did not quite reach his eyes. I hoped the lemon bread was not too dry. I said gently, "It was great, Mom," he answered quickly. "You know you do not have to cook every night." "I do not mind," I said. "It makes me happy." He nodded, but looked away after he left the table. I sat alone for a long time. The plates were still full. The room felt colder than it had an hour before. I could not help but wonder, had I done something wrong? The next day, Amanda left a note on the fridge. "Please knock before entering our space. Thanks." It was written in perfect handwriting, with a small smiley face at the end. But it did not feel friendly. It felt like a line had been drawn. And I was on the other side of it. I stood in front of the fridge, reading it over and over again. It was their bedroom, yes. But it used to be Jacob's childhood room. I had walked in without thinking, just to leave clean laundry on the bed. That night, I found myself listening again. Their door was closed, but I could hear Amanda laughing at something on her phone. Jacob said something I could not make out. And she laughed again, louder this time. I sat on the edge of my bed, holding a cup of tea that had gone cold. The tea used to comfort me. That night, it tasted like nothing. I began noticing other things too. The hallway light was turned off. Earlier than usual. They began locking the bathroom door, even when no one was inside. Amanda's tone grew short, even in small talk. And Jacob, my sweet boy, he smiled less and less each day. One evening, I was folding laundry in the living room when Jacob came in. "Mom, can we talk for a minute?" I nodded and set the clothes aside. He stood awkwardly, not meeting my eyes. "Amanda and I were thinking, it might be good if you gave us a little more privacy. Maybe stayed out during the day sometimes, just so we can focus on work and personal time." I swallowed hard. "Of course. I can go to the library. Or take a walk." He looked relieved. "Thanks, you are the best." I smiled, but something inside me shifted. That night, as I lay in bed, I kept hearing Amanda's words. "This is not what we agreed on." Agreed on what? It was my house. I had welcomed them with love and open arms. But now, it was beginning to feel like I was the guest, and a guest who might not be welcome for much longer. I did not say anything to them the next morning. I made coffee. I watered the roses. I tried to keep busy, but deep inside I could feel something changing. The days began to blend into each other, like pages of a book I was no longer reading. I went through the motions, making breakfast, tidying the house, watering the plants, but my heart was no longer in it. I felt like a stranger in my own home. Jacob had always been thoughtful. Even as a child, he would leave me little notes. "I love you, Mom," or "Thank you for the cookies." He had always been warm, affectionate, and quick to hug, but now he barely looked at me. One morning, I made his favorite breakfast: scrambled eggs with extra cheese, toast with strawberry jam, and a slice of orange on the side. I placed it on the table and waited, hoping to see the smile I had known for years. He came downstairs, glanced at the plate, and said, "Amanda and I already ate." He did not even sit. "Oh," I replied softly, trying to keep my voice steady. "I just thought you might we are on a new meal plan," he said quickly. "Thanks, though."
He walked away, and the only sound left was the ticking
of the kitchen clock. That clock had been in the same spot for 20 years. It used to tick in harmony with the rhythm of my life. Now it just reminded me how slowly the hours were passing. I carried the untouched plate to the sink, wondering why I felt so hurt. It was just breakfast. But deep down I knew it was not about the eggs. It was the distance, the emotional gap that had grown so wide I could no longer see the other side. Later that afternoon, I passed by Jacob and Amanda's room and heard the soft hum of conversation. I did not stop to listen. I just kept walking. But a few minutes later, I noticed that their door was slightly ajar. On the hallway table, a few papers were stacked. I never went through their things, but one page caught my eye because it had the title printed in bold, "Shared Household Agreement." I paused. I leaned in slightly, just enough to see the first few lines. Section 1. Contributions to monthly expenses. My name was mentioned. There were figures listed next to it, numbers I had never seen before. Amounts for utilities, food, and something labeled shared housing rent. Rent? My throat tightened. I did not understand. Why was my name on a document that treated me like a tenant in my own home? I stepped away quickly, pretending I had seen nothing. But my mind was spinning. Was that what Amanda meant when she said, "This is not what we agreed on"? Had there been a plan all along? And was I part of it? Or just in the way? I did not sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, hearing the faint creaks of the house settling. The same house where I had brought Jacob home as a newborn.
The house?
Where we celebrated birthdays, Thanksgivings, and quiet Sundays. It was not just four walls and a roof. It was my life, and yet now I felt like I needed permission to be in my own kitchen. I felt like I was taking up space they clearly wished I would leave. The next day, I asked Jacob if we could talk. He seemed distracted, his phone in hand. Can it wait, Mom? We have a video meeting in 5 minutes. I nodded. Of course. But it could not wait, because something inside me was beginning to break. I walked to the backyard and sat among my roses. Their petals were soft and pink, blooming gently under the sun. I ran my fingers across one of them and remembered how Jacob used to help me plant them every spring. Now, I wondered if he even noticed them at all. I stayed outside for over an hour, trying to understand what was happening. Trying to find a reason, a mistake I had made, something I had said, some action that had pushed them away. But no answer came, only more silence, and a strange feeling that I was being erased. Slowly, quietly, and with a smile, I looked up at the sky, searching for something to hold on to. But all I saw was a single white cloud drifting alone across a sea of blue dot just like me. It was Saturday morning. The sun filtered gently through the curtains, painting golden lines across the floor. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea between my hands. I watched the steam rise slowly, trying to calm the uneasiness growing. In my chest, Jacob came in quietly, holding his phone in one hand. He looked tired, his eyes a little dull, his shoulders slightly hunched. Good morning, I said softly. He looked up. Morning, Mom. I waited, hoping he would sit down. And to my relief, he did. For a long moment, we just sat there. The only sound was the soft ticking of the clock. I wanted to say something, to ask him what was going on. But I did not know how to begin. Finally, I said, Do you remember the first time you made toast?
He blinked, surprised. Toast? You were 6, I continued.
You stood on a chair, watching the toaster like it was magic. When it popped, you jumped and laughed so hard. Jacob smiled a little. I kind of remember that. I burned. My fingers pulling it out, I added. But you said it was the best toast ever made.
He chuckled quietly. I probably ate it with ketchup. You did. He shook his head. Wow, that feels like 100 years ago.
It was one of my favorite mornings, I said. You were proud of yourself, and I was proud of you. Jacob looked at me, and for a moment I saw something familiar in his eyes. Something warm. Something real. Jacob, I said carefully, can I ask you something? Sure. Is there something you and Amanda are not telling me? He blinked, startled. Like what? I saw a paper on the hallway table, I said slowly. It mentioned a shared household agreement. And rent. He rubbed the back of his neck. Oh, that. Amanda just wanted to write out some expectations, you know. For fairness. Fairness. He nodded. You do use the utilities too, Mom, and food. Groceries are expensive these days. I stared at him. I pay for most of the groceries. Jacob, I know, he said quickly. But Amanda feels like everything should be shared equally. She is used to structure. I swallowed hard. So you want me to pay rent? No, not rent exactly, he said. Just a contribution. Something symbolic, maybe. To make Amanda feel more comfortable. I looked down at my hands. They were trembling slightly. But this is my house, Jacob. I paid off this mortgage long before Amanda came into our lives. I know, Mom, he said gently. And we are grateful, honestly. It is just Amanda needs space. She needs to. Feel like she is part of things, not a guest. I looked at him closely. His words were careful. Too careful. Do you agree with her? I asked. Do you also think I am in the way? He paused. No, I do not. But I want to keep the peace. I want everyone to feel comfortable. I took a deep breath. I do not want to be a problem. In my own home. You are not, he said quickly. You are not. But the way he said it, it felt like a bandage placed on a wound that was still bleeding underneath. I sipped my tea, though it had gone cold. I stared at the wooden table, where Jacob used to do his homework as a boy. I remembered sitting beside him, helping him sound out long words, cheering when he got them right. I remembered braiding his hair when he was little, because he said he wanted to look like the prince in his storybook. I remembered his tiny hand, holding mine when he was scared of the thunder. How could that same little boy be sitting across from me, speaking to me like I was a guest. Still, I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust that he meant well, that this was all just a misunderstanding. A growing pain. A rough patch. I wanted to believe that behind Amanda's coldness and Jacob's hesitations there was still love, because without that hope, what would I have left? That evening I baked lemon bread again. I left a slice for Jacob on a small plate with a note, "For my son, just because." And then I went to bed, praying that things would get better, because I still wanted to trust him. I needed to. The next morning I took a walk to clear my head. The air was cool, and the sky was a soft, gentle gray. I wrapped my cardigan tighter around my shoulders and let my steps carry me down the quiet path near the park. The trees were just beginning to bloom. A few early flowers had started to open, and I paused for a moment to admire them. Life continued, no matter how heavy our hearts felt. As I reached the bench near the pond, I saw Margaret, my neighbor and longtime friend, waving at me. She had known me since Jacob was in diapers. "Good morning, Grace," she said as I approached. "Good morning, Margaret," I replied with a tired smile. She patted the spot beside her. "Come, sit. You look like you need to exhale." I sat down beside her, grateful for the warmth of her presence. She handed me a small thermos. "Peppermint tea," she said. "You always liked it." I took it with both hands. "Thank you." We sat quietly for a while, watching ducks glide across the water. Finally, Margaret spoke. "I have not seen you much lately." "I have been home," I said softly. "Jacob and Amanda moved in." "I heard," she said, her voice careful. I glanced at her. "You have something on your mind," she nodded. "I know Amanda. Not well, but I have seen how she carries herself. She is particular. She likes things a certain way," I agreed. "And I have seen Jacob," she continued, walking behind her. Always agreeing, always quiet. I looked down at the thermos in my lap. "He says it is to keep the peace." Margaret sighed. "Peace is not silence. Peace is truth." "Do you feel peaceful, Grace?" Her question hung in the air. "No," I whispered. "I feel unsettled." She nodded again, as if she had expected that answer. "I do not want to say anything hurtful," Margaret said gently, "but I know you. And I know when you are trying to convince yourself something is fine when it is not." I stayed quiet. "I have seen too many women," she continued, "who gave everything to their families, only to be treated like a burden in their own homes." My hands tightened around the thermos. "I am not saying Jacob is cruel," Margaret said quickly, "but sometimes love becomes twisted by pressure, expectations, outside influence." I thought about Amanda's cold stares, the way she rearranged the living room without asking, the closed-door conversations, the paper with the word rent printed on it. "I do not know what to think anymore." I said honestly. "Then do not ignore what you feel," Margaret said. "That is your warning. Your instincts are speaking to you." I turned to her. "What should I do?" She touched my hand. "Pay attention, that is all. Be kind, yes, but not blind. You built that home. You raised that son. Do not let anyone make you feel small inside your own life." Her words settled into me like seeds. We talked for a while longer, but her warning stayed with me even as I walked home. It echoed louder than the birds in the trees or the cars passing by when I stepped through the front door. Something felt different. Amanda was in the living room, rearranging the bookshelf again. She did not greet me. Jacob was nowhere in sight. I walked to the kitchen and noticed my favorite tea tin, an old blue one from my travels, was missing from the counter. In its place was a modern glass jar labeled Kitchen Essentials. My hands hovered over it, just a small change perhaps. But I could feel it, piece by piece. They were replacing my presence with theirs. Margaret's voice came back to me. "Peace is not silence. Peace is truth." That night, I could not sleep. I listened to the creaks in the house, the hum of the refrigerator, the sound of distant laughter from the upstairs room. I thought of Jacob as a boy, falling asleep beside me during storms, and I thought of the quiet woman in the mirror, now unsure, waiting, watching. The warning had been spoken, and I knew I could no longer pretend I had not heard it. I decided to focus on the good. At least, that was what I told myself when I woke up the next morning. I went downstairs and made pancakes, just like I used to on Saturdays when Jacob was a child. I laid out the plates, poured orange juice, and even placed a small vase with fresh flowers in the center of the table. I wanted it to feel like a home again. My home. Amanda walked in first. She barely glanced at the table before reaching for her coffee mug. "Morning," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "Morning," she replied, her voice flat. She sat down and pulled out her phone. I swallowed the tight feeling in my throat. Jacob followed a few minutes later. His face lit up, just for a second, when he saw the pancakes. "You made breakfast," he said, surprised. "I did," I replied, smiling. "I thought it would be nice to sit together." "Looks great," he said. He sat beside Amanda and gave her a soft nudge. "Put your phone down for a minute." Amanda sighed and placed it face down on the table. We ate quietly. The silence was not peaceful, it was heavy. But I tried not to notice. I asked about their week, about work, about their plans for the weekend. Jacob answered kindly, but Amanda's replies were short and cold. Still, I smiled through it all. I told myself it was just a phase. After breakfast, I cleaned the kitchen while they went upstairs. I could hear them talking behind their closed door, their voices low and fast. I could not make out the words, and I told myself it was none of my business. I chose to ignore the sting in my chest. Later that afternoon, I went to the garden to trim the roses. It was something I used to do every weekend. The fresh air always helped clear my mind. As I clipped away the dry leaves, I remembered Margaret's words. "Be kind, yes, but not blind." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, but when I went back inside, I found something that made my heart sink. A box, sitting at the bottom of the stairs, labeled "Mom's Things." I opened it slowly. Inside were books, knickknacks, a framed photo of Jacob and me at the beach, and a few of my kitchen towels. They had cleared my things from the living room shelves. Quietly, without a word, I stood there for a long time, just staring at the box. I wanted to cry, but I did not. Instead, I picked it up, carried it to my room, and set it in the closet. Maybe they just needed space. Maybe they were reorganizing. I kept telling myself that. At dinner, Amanda announced they were going out with friends. She barely looked at me when she spoke. Jacob said, "We will not be late." I nodded. "Have fun." When the door closed behind them, I sat at the table with my plate untouched. I stared at the flickering candle I had lit, hoping it would bring warmth into the room. It did not. The silence pressed down on me like a weight. Still, I tried to ignore it. I turned on the television and watched old movies. I folded laundry. I even baked cookies and placed them in a tin labeled, "Help yourself." I told myself I was imagining things, that I was being too sensitive, that I was reading too much into Amanda's coldness and Jacob's silence. But the truth was there. In the quiet moments. In the way Amanda avoided my eyes. In the way Jacob smiled. But only halfway. In the little changes. My favorite chair replaced with a newer one, the curtains swapped out, my tea jars moved from the cupboard. I tried not to see it. I tried to be patient, to stay hopeful, to pretend everything was fine, but each day, something small disappeared, and a little piece of me disappeared with it. There was a moment just yesterday that caught me off guard. I had come downstairs a little later than usual. The sun was already high, pouring golden light across the wooden floor. I wore my blue cardigan, the one Jacob had given me years ago, for my birthday. As I walked into the kitchen, I found him standing by the fridge, pouring himself a glass of juice. Amanda was not there. It was just the two of us. He looked up when he heard me. And in that moment, he froze. Not because he was startled, not because he was happy to see me, but because there was hesitation in his eyes, like he was unsure of how to greet me. It was not the look of a son who felt at home with his mother. It was not warmth or affection. It was distance. "Morning," I said quietly. "Morning," he replied after a pause.
He took a sip and leaned against the counter. We stood in silence. I wanted to ask him if something was wrong.
I wanted to reach out and place my hand on his arm like I used to when he was troubled, but I did not, because I was afraid of what he might say. Instead, I turned toward the kettle and began boiling water for tea. The clinking of the spoon, the quiet hiss of the steam, they were my shield. I was thinking of going to the farmer's market later, I said casually. Maybe pick up some fresh tomatoes. That sounds nice, he said. But he did not offer to come along. He did not even ask if I wanted company. He finished his juice and left the room with a short, awkward nod, and just like that, he was gone. I stood there for a long time, letting the silence settle in around me. I thought about that look on his face. It was not anger. It was not cruelty. It was discomfort. As if I had become a guest. That afternoon, I sat in the living room alone. I glanced around and noticed the little things again. The family photo from the hallway was gone, replaced with a modern art print. The bookshelf had new books I had never seen before. There was no trace of me anymore, and when Jacob came home, he barely looked at me. That was what hurt the most. Not the things Amanda moved, not the box of my belongings, but the way my own son looked at me like I was in the way. I tried to remember the last time he looked at me with love in his eyes. Was it a year ago? 2, maybe longer. We used to laugh in the kitchen together. We used to bake cinnamon rolls on Sunday mornings. He would tell me about his dreams, about the kind of life he wanted, the kind of man he hoped to become. And now, I was a shadow in the background, not a mother, not a partner in conversation, just a quiet presence they tolerated. That night, I stood at my bedroom window, watching the lights of the neighborhood flicker on. One by one, I thought about Margaret's warning again, and I thought about that look Jacob gave me, the one that said, "Without words, you do not belong here anymore." I told myself I was imagining it, but I knew I was not. There is something about a mother's heart that knows when her child is slipping away, even without words, even in a single glance, even in the way he looks at her like she is no longer part of the story he is writing. It had been building inside me for days. The unease, the questions, the silence. I kept telling myself I was imagining it, that the strange looks, the missing items, the way they tiptoed around me were nothing more than signs of adjustment. But my heart knew better. That morning, I found Amanda in the living room, organizing receipts in a small file folder. Her phone was on speaker, and I could hear someone talking about payments and due dates. When she saw me, she quickly turned it off. "Just sorting bills," she said flatly. I nodded and walked past her, but my stomach felt tight. Something was not right. Later, when Jacob returned from the store, I decided I could not pretend anymore. I waited until Amanda went upstairs. Then I followed him into the kitchen. He had just placed 2 grocery bags on the counter and was pulling out a loaf of bread. "Jacob," I said softly, "can we talk?"
He glanced up, then quickly went back to unpacking.
"Sure, Mom. What is up?" I took a deep breath. "I need to ask you something. And I need you to be honest with me." He froze for a moment, his hands still inside the bag. "I will try," he said carefully. I stepped closer, steadying my voice. "Why do I feel like a stranger in my own home?" He turned to face me, but he did not speak. His eyes searched mine. And for a moment I thought I saw guilt. "I mean it, Jacob," I continued. "Things have changed. The furniture, the way Amanda speaks to me, the looks you give me. Even small things like where my teacups are kept or how my things were packed away without asking." He looked down at the floor. "I know you are building a life together," I said. "And I want to respect that, but I need to know." I in the way. His shoulders dropped slightly. He leaned against the counter and let out a long breath. "It is not that," he said finally. "Then what is it?"
He hesitated. "Amanda just..."
"She feels like she cannot fully settle in while you are still here." I blinked. "Still here?" "This is my house, Jacob." "I know," he said quickly. "I know that. But she says it feels like she is living in someone else's space, like she is just a guest." I stared at him. My throat tightened. "I have always tried to make her feel welcome," I said, my voice trembling. "I gave her the master bedroom. I let her change the living room. I even moved my sewing into the garage so she could have a quiet office space." "I know, Mom. I really do," he said. "But it is more than just space. She wants her own home. I felt the floor tilt under me. And what do you want, Jacob? I asked. Do you want me gone too? He looked at me, then really looked at me. And for a second, the boy I raised was there in his eyes. No, he said, quietly, but I also want peace. And lately it feels like we are all stepping on eggshells. So the solution is to remove me? I asked, my voice hardening. No one said that. You did not have to.
He looked away again, picking at a corner of the grocery bag. We have talked about maybe getting our own place, he said.
But money is tight right now. That is why Amanda brought up the idea of, contributing. I stared at him in disbelief. You mean paying rent? I said. He did not answer. I gave you everything, I whispered. And now you want me to pay to live in the home I built for you? Mom, it is not like that, but I did not want to hear it anymore. I walked out of the kitchen, my heart pounding, my vision blurry with tears I refused to let fall. I had asked for the truth, and now I had it. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the shadows of tree branches swaying gently in the moonlight outside my window. The quiet hum of the ceiling fan did nothing to calm my mind. Jacob's words echoed inside me like a whisper I could not silence. We have talked about maybe getting our own place. But money is tight. That is why Amanda brought up the idea of contributing. Contributing. What a careful word. Not renting. Not charging, just contributing, but I knew what it meant. I was no longer seen as the mother of the house. I was now just another adult under their roof, except it was not their roof. It was mine. I closed my eyes tightly, but the thoughts kept flooding in. I remembered how Jacob used to come into my room late at night when he was young, afraid of thunderstorms. I would hold him, whisper that everything would be all right. I was his safety then. I was his home. Now I was a burden. I turned onto my side, clutching the blanket. What had changed? Had I changed? Or had he? I kept going back to every little moment that led to this. The missing photo from the hallway, the conversations that stopped when I entered the room, Amanda's polite but distant tone, Jacob's uncomfortable silences, and now this asking me to pay rent in my own house. I wanted to believe this was a misunderstanding. I wanted to believe that if I just explained how I felt, Jacob would realize how hurtful it all was. But a part of me knew the truth. This was not sudden. This was planned, and I had been too quiet, too accommodating, too hopeful to see it. I sat up in bed and looked around the room. Even this space, once my sanctuary, felt like it was shrinking. My old curtains were replaced with Amanda's modern ones. My books were boxed up in the closet. The lamp on my bedside table was too bright for my liking. It was all different now. Everything had changed. I walked to the window and looked out at the quiet street. The neighbor's porch lights glowed softly. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked once, then fell silent. I used to love this neighborhood. I used to know every family on this street. I had watched their children grow, shared meals, and borrowed cups of sugar. Now I barely recognized any of them. How long had I been disappearing from my own life? The thought hit me hard. I had spent so many years taking care of others, Jacob, his father, even Amanda when she moved in. I had said yes to everything. I had stepped aside, made room, kept peace. But what had I kept for myself? Where was my space? Where was my voice? I turned away from the window and sat at my old writing desk. It was dusty. I had not used it in months. I opened the drawer and found a small notepad. I began to write. Not anything special, just thoughts, feelings, a way to get the noise out of my head. I feel invisible. I wrote, I feel like I gave too much and asked for too little. I feel like I do not know my son anymore. The words poured out of me like water breaking through a dam. I feel lost. And then, without meaning to, I wrote something else. I am not sure I belong here anymore. I stared at those words for a long time. I did not want them to be true, but they were, and admitting it, even on paper, felt like something was shifting inside me. I had spent too many nights like this awake, thinking, worrying, trying to understand. What went wrong? I needed rest. But more than that, I needed clarity, and maybe, just maybe, I needed change. The next morning came with a heavy silence. No shouting. No argument. No apology. Just the sound of footsteps moving through the hallway, distant voices behind closed doors, and the quiet clinking of dishes in the kitchen. I moved slowly, like my body was made of something heavier than flesh. My bones felt tired. My heart even more so. I went into the kitchen and poured myself a cup of tea. Amanda was already sitting at the table, scrolling through her phone, a soft hum coming from her lips as if nothing had happened. Jacob stood at the stove, flipping pancakes. He glanced at me and nodded. Morning. I nodded back. That was all. I sat down in the chair nearest the window. The sun had not fully risen yet. A pale gray light spread across the backyard, casting long shadows of the garden fence onto the grass. I watched it without really seeing it. My tea tasted bitter that morning. I had used the same blend I always used, but something felt off. Everything felt off. No one spoke. Jacob placed a plate in front of Amanda and then one in front of me. I thanked him quietly, though I had no appetite. I cut a small piece of pancake and forced myself to chew. He sat down across from me. Amanda remained focused on her phone. I kept my eyes on my plate, but inside, I was screaming. I wanted to ask, do you understand what you have done? I wanted to say, this is not about rent. It is about respect. But I said nothing. I had said enough the night before. And still, nothing had changed. The air between us was thick with things unsaid. It pressed against my chest, made my hands shake slightly as I held my fork. After breakfast, I excused myself and went to the back porch. The old wooden swing creaked as I sat on it, the sound oddly comforting. I used to sit here in the early mornings when Jacob was a boy waiting for the school bus. I would wave to him from this very spot. He would smile at me from the sidewalk, his backpack too big for his little shoulders. Now he barely looked me in the eye. I folded my arms and stared out into the yard. The roses were blooming again, deep red, soft pink, bright yellow. I had planted them years ago with my husband. Each bush had a story. The yellow one had bloomed the week Jacob was born. The red one was for our 20th anniversary. I wondered if anyone even noticed them anymore. As I sat there, I felt a strange kind of ache. Not the sharp, overwhelming kind. No, this was quieter. It was the ache of being slowly erased. Of watching your place in the world become smaller, of hearing your voice echo into emptiness. I closed my eyes and let the breeze move through my hair. I thought of my mother and how she used to say, sometimes the deepest pain is the one we never speak aloud. I understood her now. I had spent so many years giving everything, my time, my heart, my energy, because I believed that was what mothers did. We gave and we gave and we gave, but no one ever told me what to do when the giving was no longer enough. No one told me what to do when the people you loved the most stopped seeing you. I stayed on the porch until the sun had risen fully, warming my skin. I listened to the birds, the sound of a lawnmower starting down the street, and the gentle of life going on. Inside the house, I heard Jacob's voice and Amanda's laughter. Not cruel, just distant. As if I was no longer part of their story. I stood up slowly, the swing creaking one last time behind me. I had things to do: laundry, a grocery list, bills to check, but I could not bring myself to care. Not today. Today. I would carry this quiet pain with me. Not to punish them, but to remember. To remember that even silence has a voice, and it was time I started listening to mine. I waited 2 more days. Too long, quiet, aching days. I kept hoping Jacob would say something, anything that might help me understand what he was thinking. I hoped he would come to me, look into my eyes and say, I am sorry. I did not mean to hurt you. But the apology never came. Instead, there were only short conversations about groceries and schedules.
He asked if I could pick up the dry cleaning while Amanda was at work. He reminded me to lock the side door before bed.
He even thanked me once for making dinner. But not once did he mention the conversation we had that night in the living room. Not once did he bring up the idea of me paying rent. It was as if he thought I had forgotten, but I had not. I could not. By the 3rd evening, I could feel my chest tightening. I was not sleeping well. I was barely eating. My thoughts swirled in every direction. I tried to stay calm. I tried to act normal, but my soul was restless. I needed clarity. I needed the truth not hidden behind politeness, not softened by vague words like contributing. I needed an answer. That night, after dinner, I waited until Amanda went upstairs. Then I called Jacob into the living room. He looked tired.
He rubbed the back of his neck as he sat down on the couch across from me. I sat straight, hands folded.
In my lap, my voice was steady but firm. Jacob, I need to ask you something, and I want the truth. Not what you think I want to hear. He nodded slowly. All right. I took a deep breath. Why did you ask me to pay rent in my own home? His eyes shifted slightly. He looked down at the rug, then up again. I did not mean it like that, Mom. It was just... Amanda and I have been talking about responsibilities, about everyone doing their part. I nodded, though my throat tightened. But you live in my house, I said softly. This is my home. I never ask either of you to pay anything. I have never asked for anything at all. And now you want me to pay to stay in my own bedroom.
He swallowed hard. I know how it sounds, but it is not like that.
Amanda thought maybe it would be a good step toward independence for us. Managing our own space, making things more balanced. I stared at him for a long moment. So whose idea was it really?
He hesitated. It started with Amanda, but I agreed.
I closed my eyes just for a moment. I had known the truth. But hearing him say it still hurt more than I had prepared for. I have given you everything I could, I whispered. When your father left, I held this family together. I worked long hours. I never let you see how tired I was. I made sure. You never went without, and I never asked you to repay me. I know, he said quickly. I do. I am grateful, Mom. I really am. Then why does it not feel like it? He looked away. There was a long pause. The kind that stretches deep into the heart. Finally, he said, Maybe we just assumed you would always be okay with everything. You have always been the one who made things easier. We did not think about how it might feel from your side. I nodded, even though the words stung. So you thought I would stay quiet, that I would just go along, that I would not notice.
He looked ashamed. I am sorry.
There it was, but it did not feel like enough. Still, I said nothing more. I stood up slowly, letting the weight of the moment settle between us. Thank you for your honesty, I said. I needed to hear it.
He looked up at me, eyes uncertain. Are you angry? I paused, double quotes. No, I am disappointed.
And that is worse. Then I turned and walked upstairs. I did not slam the door. I did not cry, but I sat on the edge of my bed and let the silence hold me. And in that silence, I knew something had shifted between us, something I could never quite return to the way it had been. That night, I lay in bed for hours with my eyes wide open. The shadows on the ceiling moved slowly as the moonlight shifted through the window blinds. Somewhere in the house, the old pipes let out a low groan. Outside, a branch tapped gently against the glass. I was surrounded by familiar things: my soft blue quilt, the lamp I had bought 20 years ago, the old photo of Jacob as a boy on my nightstand, but nothing felt familiar anymore. I had spent days feeling confused, angry, hurt, but in that still moment, something inside me settled. Not in peace, not in comfort, but in clarity. I finally understood. It was not just about money. It was not about rent or chores or responsibilities. It was about how I had slowly become invisible in my own home. I had allowed it to happen, piece by piece, moment by moment. I had smiled when they needed me. I had stayed silent when I should have spoken. I had given up space, time, comfort, even my own needs, because I believed that was what love looked like. And now, they had taken my silence for weakness. They had mistaken my generosity for obligation, and I had let them. Tears came, quiet and slow. Not from pain this time, but from realization. I thought back to the day Amanda first moved in. She had been pregnant, frightened, overwhelmed. I welcomed her with open arms. I told her this would always be her safe place. Then Jacob lost his job. I offered him a room, meals, encouragement. I told him we would get through it together. I never set boundaries. I never asked for limits. I never reminded them that I was still a person, not just a mother, not just a support system, not just a background figure. I had taught them without meaning to that I would always adjust for them, that I would bend and bend and bend. But no one can bend forever without breaking. That night, I got out of bed and walked quietly to the living room. I stood in the doorway for a long moment. The room was dark except for the soft glow from the porch light, the same couch where Jacob had sat hours ago, the same space where we used to gather for Christmas mornings, movie nights, rainy day puzzles. I walked over to the fireplace mantel and looked at the family photos. Smiles frozen in time. Moments filled with laughter and love. We were happy once. I truly believed that, but somewhere along the way, things had changed, and I had not spoken up. I sat on the couch and whispered into the empty room. I am not angry, but I cannot keep doing this. I knew no one could hear me, but I needed to say it out loud. I needed to hear myself speak, because in all of this, I had stopped hearing my own voice. I had drowned it in their needs, their opinions, their assumptions. But tonight, something inside me had shifted. I would no longer wait for others to see me. I would show them who I was. Not with yelling, not with demands, but with decisions. With action. With presence. I stayed on that couch until the sun began to rise. Birdsong filled the air. The first golden light touched the edges of the room. I stood, stretched my tired limbs, and smiled, not out of joy, but out of strength. It was the smile of someone who had been lost in a fog, but had finally found the path forward. I walked back to my room and I placed the photo of young Jacob in a drawer, not to forget, but to make space for the present. Today would not be like yesterday. Because today, I finally understood. And understanding is where healing begins. The morning light felt different that day. It was not soft and warm like it used to be. Instead, it was sharp and clear, like a spotlight on everything I had ignored for too long. I knew I had to do something, not just for myself, but for my soul. I packed a small bag that afternoon. Not much, just a few essentials, some clothes, my favorite book, a photo album. I did not tell Jacob or Amanda. I did not argue or explain. I simply gathered what I needed and walked out the front door. The air outside was cool and crisp. The scent of pine trees and fresh earth filled my lungs. I took a deep breath and felt a strange mix of fear and relief. Fear because I was leaving the home I had built with so much love. Relief because I was finally doing something for me. I drove to a small cabin by the lake, a place I had visited once years ago with my sister. It was peaceful, quiet, and far enough away to give me space to think. The cabin was simple. A wood stove, a small kitchen, a single bed, and a window that looked out onto the water. I sat by the window for hours, watching the gentle ripples and the birds flying overhead. I thought about Jacob, about Amanda, about all the years we had spent together. I thought about my husband, who had left us when the children were young. I remembered the nights I had cried silently in that same cabin, wondering how I would make it alone. But I also remembered the strength I had found there, the strength to keep going, to build a life for my family. That strength was still inside me. I realized that walking away did not mean giving up. It meant standing up. Standing up for myself, for my dignity, for my peace. I called a close friend that evening, someone I trusted completely. I needed to get away, I said softly. She listened without judgment. You are doing the right thing, she said. Sometimes we need to step back to see clearly. Her words warmed me. I realized I was not alone. Over the next few days, I allowed myself to feel everything: pain, anger, sadness, but also hope. Hope that things could change. Hope that I could find my voice again. Hope that I could rebuild my life on my own terms. I wrote letters to Jacob and Amanda but did not send them. I poured out my heart on paper, explaining how I felt invisible, how I felt betrayed, how I needed them to understand me not just as their mother, but as a woman with her own dreams and needs. The letters helped me release some of the pain, but I knew real healing would come from action, not words. After a week, I returned home. The house was quiet when I walked in. Jacob was sitting at the kitchen table, looking at his phone. Amanda was not there. I looked around and felt a strange mixture of familiarity and distance. I did not rush to explain. I did not ask for apologies. Instead, I stood tall and spoke with calm strength. I needed time away, I said, to remember who I am. Jacob looked up, surprised but silent. I will not stay silent anymore, I continued. I will no longer accept being made to feel small in my own home.
He nodded slowly. It is time for change, I said. And I meant it. Walking away had
given me the courage to stand my ground. It had reminded me that my voice mattered, that I mattered. That home is not just a place. It is a feeling. And I had every right to feel safe, respected, and loved here. That day marked the beginning of a new chapter. One where I was no longer invisible, one where I was no longer silent, one where I was finally free to be myself. Even though I had returned home with a new sense of strength, the pain did not disappear. It stayed with me like a shadow that followed quietly behind every step I took. Some days it felt heavier than others, pressing on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I tried to tell myself that this pain was part of the process, that healing was not a straight line but a winding path full of ups and downs. Yet there were moments when I wondered if the pain would ever leave me. I found myself sitting alone in the living room, staring out the window at the autumn leaves falling slowly to the ground. Their colors were bright and beautiful, but their fall reminded me of loss, of things slipping away, of time passing, and of relationships changing. Jacob came home that evening and sat beside me silently. I looked at him but said nothing. He reached out and took my hand gently. His touch was soft but hesitant. I am sorry, he said quietly. I did not realize how much I hurt you. His words were simple, but they carried a weight I had not expected. For a moment I felt a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to heal together, but the pain stayed, because sorry was only the beginning. It could not erase the months of hurt, the nights of loneliness, or the times I felt unseen. I realized that forgiveness was not something I could give quickly or easily. It had to grow slowly, like a seed breaking through the earth after a long winter. I needed time to grieve the past, time to rebuild trust. Time to learn how to love myself again. I began to write in my journal every day. I poured my feelings onto the pages: anger, sadness, hope, confusion. Writing helped me make sense of the storm inside. Sometimes I cried as I wrote. Other times I smiled at the memories of better days. It was a way to hold both the pain and the love in my heart at the same time. I also started taking long walks in the park near my home. The fresh air and movement helped clear my mind. I noticed small details I had missed before: the way the sunlight filtered through the trees, the sound of children laughing in the distance, the soft rustle of squirrels gathering nuts for winter. These little moments reminded me that life continued outside my pain, that joy could still exist, even when sadness was near. One afternoon, Amanda stopped by unexpectedly. She looked nervous and unsure. I wanted to see how you are doing, she said softly. We sat together in the kitchen. I listened as she spoke about her struggles, her fears, and her regrets. It was the first real conversation we had shared in months, though the pain was still there. A small bridge had begun to form between us. It was fragile and new, but it was there. I learned that healing is not about forgetting or pretending that nothing happened. It is about facing the pain honestly and allowing love to find its way back. I still feel the ache in my chest some days. It is a reminder of what was lost and what is being rebuilt. But I also feel a growing strength inside me. Strength that comes from standing through the storm. A strength that comes from choosing to move forward. One step at a time. The pain stays, but so does hope. And that makes all the difference. Sometimes the past visits me like an old friend. It comes quietly, without warning, in the form of a scent, a song, or a familiar sound. It reminds me of the days when life was simpler, when laughter filled the house, and love felt like an unbreakable bond. I miss those moments deeply. The way my son Jacob used to run to me with open arms. The evenings spent around the dinner table, sharing stories and dreams. The sound of Amanda's laughter echoing through the rooms. Those were days filled with hope and happiness. Now, the house feels different. It is quieter, heavier. Sometimes it feels like a stranger's place, not the home I built with so much care, and love. I look at old photographs on the wall and wonder how things changed so much. How did we get here? Memories flood my mind, bright and warm, but also bittersweet. I remember the family vacations, the birthday parties, and the small celebrations that meant the world to us. I remember the hugs, the smiles, and the quiet moments when I felt truly connected to my children. I miss feeling like I mattered to them. The past feels like a safe place where pain does not reach me. It is a world where love was certain and the future was full of possibilities. Sometimes, I catch myself wishing I could turn back time, to hold those moments again, to tell my younger self that everything would be all right, that the storms would pass and strength would grow from the pain, but time moves only forward. It does not stop or rewind. I have learned that missing the past is part of healing. It is a sign that I still care, that I still love deeply. It is a reminder of what I have lost and what I hope to find again. I do not want to forget the past. It shaped me into who I am today. It gave me memories to cherish and lessons to carry forward. At the same time, I know that I cannot live in the past. I must learn to let go of what no longer serves me and open my heart to the present. I have begun to find joy in small things: morning sunlight through the curtains, the smell of fresh coffee, a kind word from a neighbor. These moments do not erase the past, but they add new colors to my life. I also started looking through the photo albums with a different perspective. Instead of feeling sad, I try to smile at the memories. I see the love that was there and still is, even if it looks different now. One afternoon, I found an old letter I had written to Jacob when he was a child. In it, I told him how proud I was of him and how much I believed in his dreams. Reading those words brought tears to my eyes. It reminded me that love never truly fades. It changes, it grows, but it never disappears. I want Jacob and Amanda to know that no matter what happens, my love for them is unconditional. Even when we struggle, even when we hurt each other, that love remains. Missing the past is not a weakness. It is a sign of a heart that remembers, that feels deeply, and that hopes for healing. I have also learned to share my feelings with friends who listen with kindness and understanding. Talking about my memories helps me accept both the joy and the pain. It makes me feel less alone. Sometimes I write letters to my past self, thanking her for her courage and reminding her to keep going. I find strength in those words, and I hope she does too. I know the road ahead will have challenges. There will be moments of sadness and doubt. But I also know that I carry the past with me, not as a burden, but as a treasure. I miss the past. That feeling will never fully go away, but I am learning to carry it gently, like a precious stone in my hand, a stone that reminds me where I have been, who I am, and where I want to go. It was a quiet afternoon when Amanda called me. Her voice was soft and careful, like she was testing the waters before diving in. I was surprised but happy to hear from her. It had been weeks since we last spoke, and I missed the sound of her voice. I wanted to see how you are doing, she said hesitantly. We agreed to meet at a small cafe near my house. The place was warm and inviting, with sunlight streaming through the windows and the soft hum of conversation around us. It felt like the perfect place to reconnect. When I saw her, I noticed how tired she looked. There were dark circles under her eyes, and her smile was small but genuine. I knew she had been carrying her own burdens. We ordered tea and sat facing each other. For a moment, there was silence between us. Neither of us knew where to begin. Finally, Amanda spoke. I know things have been difficult between us. I have made mistakes and I am sorry. Her words touched me. It was the first time she admitted the pain between us. I took a deep breath and nodded. I am sorry too, I said softly. I miss how things used to be. I miss us. We talked for hours, sharing memories and feelings we had kept hidden. Amanda told me about her fears and the pressure she felt to prove herself. She said she felt overwhelmed by the changes in our family and unsure how to fix what was broken. I shared my own feelings of loneliness and hurt. I told her about the nights I spent crying and the days when I felt invisible in my own home. I spoke honestly about the pain of watching her, and Jacob turned away from me. Talking to Amanda was like opening a window in a stuffy room. Fresh air rushed in, and I felt a weight lifting from my chest. It was the first step toward healing the wounds between us. We did not solve everything that day. There were still questions without answers and feelings too raw to face. But we had started to rebuild the bridge between us. After our conversation, I felt a small spark of hope. Maybe it was possible to move forward, to find a new way to love each other despite the difficulties. I realized that talking honestly was a powerful act of courage. It required vulnerability and trust. It meant putting aside pride and opening my heart to the possibility of reconciliation. I also learned that healing is not a race. It takes time, patience, and many small steps. One conversation cannot fix years of hurt, but it can be the first brick in a new foundation. In the days that followed, Amanda and I stayed in touch. We sent messages, shared photos, and made plans to meet again. Each contact felt like a thread weaving us closer together. I noticed that as we talked more, the pain inside me softened. It did not disappear, but it became easier to carry. I also found strength in knowing that I was not alone. Amanda was willing to listen and share her feelings. That meant more to me than I could say. Our talks reminded me that family is complicated. It is not always perfect or easy. Sometimes it breaks and hurts deeply. But even in the broken places, love can grow again. I began to understand that forgiveness is not about forgetting or excusing the past. It is about choosing to let go of anger and pain so that healing can begin. I also realized that I needed to forgive myself for the times I felt weak or scared, for the mistakes I made, for the moments when I doubted my worth. Talking to Amanda helped me see that I am more than my pain. I am a woman who has survived and grown stronger. I have love to give, even when it is difficult. I know that the road ahead will still have challenges. There will be moments of doubt and fear. But now I face them with a friend by my side. Our conversation was not an end, but a new beginning. It was a step toward healing, understanding, and hope. And for the first time in a long time, I felt ready to take that step. Saying goodbye is never easy. It feels like closing a door to a room filled with memories, both good and bad. Yet, sometimes, goodbye is necessary. It is a step toward healing and finding peace within oneself. That day, I knew it was time.
Time.
To say goodbye not just to a person, but to a chapter of my life that had brought pain and confusion. It was a goodbye to the dreams I once held and the trust I had lost. I sat in the quiet living room, the same room where so many family moments had unfolded. The walls seemed to hold the echoes of laughter and arguments, love and disappointment. I ran my fingers over a worn photo frame. It was a picture of Jacob and me smiling on a sunny day. I felt a sudden rush of sadness mixed with acceptance. I took a deep breath and picked up my phone. I needed to tell Jacob that I was letting go, not out of anger, but out of self-respect and love for myself. I wrote slowly, carefully choosing each word. I wanted him to understand that this goodbye was not about punishment. It was about protecting my heart and finding strength. When I sent the message, a wave of relief washed over me. It was as if a heavy weight had been lifted from my shoulders. At the same time, a quiet ache remained. Goodbyes always leave a space that feels empty and uncertain. In the days that followed, I felt a strange mix of emotions. There was sadness for what we lost, but also a sense of freedom. I was no longer trapped in the pain of trying to fix what could not be changed. I spent time reflecting on my own needs and desires. I thought about who I was beyond being a mother, a wife, or a caretaker. I began to explore the parts of myself that had been hidden or forgotten. Saying goodbye also meant setting boundaries. It meant protecting my peace and learning to say no when something did not feel right. It was a lesson in valuing myself and my well-being. I found comfort in simple routines, morning walks, reading books, and quiet moments with my thoughts. These small acts of self-care helped me heal and regain my strength. One afternoon, I walked through the garden, feeling the sun warm on my face. I realized that saying goodbye was not the end. It was a beginning, a chance to grow and rediscover joy. I also understood that goodbye does not mean forgetting. It means honoring the past while moving forward with courage. I wrote letters to myself, letters filled with kindness and encouragement. I reminded myself that I am worthy of love and respect. That I deserve happiness and peace. Though the pain of goodbye was real, I chose to face it with grace. I allowed myself to cry and to feel the emptiness. But I also chose hope. Hope that one day wounds would heal. Hope that relationships could change or fade without bitterness. Hope that I could build a life filled with meaning and love. Saying goodbye taught me the power of acceptance. Accepting that some things cannot be fixed. Accepting that people change and sometimes grow apart. I began to see that letting go was not a failure. It was a brave act of self-love. As the days passed, I noticed a quiet strength growing inside me. It was the strength to live authentically, to honor my feelings, and to embrace my journey. I looked forward to the future with cautious optimism. I knew challenges would come, but I was ready to meet them on my own terms. Goodbye was not a closing door, but a new path opening before me. I promised myself to walk that path with courage, kindness, and hope. And so I said goodbye not with anger or regret, but with love and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. Being alone is not the same as feeling lonely. I have learned this slowly, like a quiet lesson unfolding in the stillness around me. Now, after the goodbyes and the storms of emotion, I am alone, but I am not empty. I am whole in ways I did not understand before. At first, the silence felt overwhelming. The house seemed too big, too quiet. Every corner held memories that whispered to me when no one else was near. I missed the noise of family, the bustle of everyday life. But with time, I started to notice the peace and the quiet being alone gave. Space to breathe deeply and listen to myself. It was a chance to hear my own thoughts without interruption or expectation. I began to recognize feelings I had buried for years: sadness, hope, fear, and strength. I spent long mornings sitting by the window, watching the world move slowly outside. The sunlight would warm my face, and the gentle breeze would carry the scent of flowers and fresh earth. In those moments, I felt connected to life in a new way. Sometimes I walked through the garden, touching the petals of the roses and listening to the birds singing softly. Nature reminded me that growth comes slowly and patiently. It taught me that even after winter, spring always returns. At night, when the house was dark and quiet, I sometimes felt a pang of loneliness. But I learned to sit with that feeling without rushing away. I understood that being alone meant accepting all parts of myself, the strong and the vulnerable. I also discovered the power of small joys. A cup of warm tea, a favorite book, or a song that moved my heart. These simple pleasures became anchors in my days. Without distractions, I began to explore my passions again. I picked up old hobbies that I had put aside, like painting and writing. These activities helped me express emotions that words alone could not capture. Being alone also gave me the chance to reflect on my past choices and dreams. I thought about the woman I wanted to be, not the one others expected me to be. I realized I had strength I never fully appreciated. I found comfort in journaling. Writing down my thoughts and feelings became a daily ritual. It was a way to understand myself better and to track my progress on this journey. In the quiet of my home, I faced fears that I had avoided. Fear of being forgotten, fear of failure, fear of never being truly loved. But I also discovered courage. The courage to stand alone, to trust myself, and to believe in my worth. Friends reached out sometimes, and I welcomed their kindness. But I knew that this time was mine to heal, to grow, and to rediscover who I am. Being alone gave me freedom. Freedom to make choices without compromise. Freedom to listen to my heart and follow my path. It was not always easy. Some days felt heavy and the silence pressed in too close. But I reminded myself that healing is not linear. It has ups and downs, moments of light and shadow. I thought often about forgiveness, of others and myself. I learned that forgiving does not mean forgetting or excusing pain. It means releasing the grip of anger and resentment so I could move forward. Alone, I found peace in acceptance. Acceptance of my imperfections, my past, and the uncertain future. I saw beauty in the imperfect journey of life. I realized that being alone does not mean being lonely forever. It is a time to grow strong, to love oneself fully, and to prepare for new connections that respect and honor who I have become. I felt a quiet pride in my resilience. I had survived storms that could have broken me. Instead, I was learning to thrive. Each day, I woke with a little more hope. Hope that my story was not over, that new chapters awaited me filled with possibility and joy. I began to see myself not as a victim of circumstances but as the author of my life. I held the pen now, and I could write whatever story I chose. Being alone was no longer a sentence but a gift. A chance to discover my true self and to embrace the freedom that comes with it. And so, I stand here alone but strong, quiet but alive. Healing but hopeful. This is the moment I have been waiting for. I am not the same woman I was before. That truth settles in quietly but firmly, like a new foundation beneath my feet. The experiences I have lived through, the pain, the loss, the betrayals have shaped me. They have changed me in ways I could not have imagined. At first, change felt frightening. I was unsure who I was becoming. Old fears and doubts whispered that I might lose myself completely. But slowly I realized that I was growing into a stronger, wiser version of myself. I see things differently now. Where I once saw only hurt, I now see lessons. Where I once felt powerless, I now recognize my strength. Where I once doubted my worth, I now understand my value. This change did not happen overnight. It was a gradual unfolding, like the petals of a flower opening to the sun. Each day brought a small shift, sometimes barely noticeable, but over time, the transformation became clear. I learned to trust my instincts more. When something felt wrong, I listened. When someone's words did not match their actions, I paid attention. I no longer ignored the quiet signals that my heart and mind sent me. I began to set boundaries, not out of anger or bitterness, but out of respect for myself. I understood that saying no was not selfish. It was necessary for my peace and well-being. I also noticed how my relationships changed. Some people drifted away, unable to accept the new me. Others stepped closer, offering support and understanding. This shift was painful at times, but it was also freeing. I stopped trying to please everyone. I stopped hiding my feelings or pretending to be okay when I was not. I allowed myself to be real, even if it meant being vulnerable. In this new version of myself, I found courage. Courage to face difficult truths. Courage to speak up for what I believe. Courage to stand alone when I needed to. I also discovered patience with myself and with the process of healing. I realized that growth takes time and that setbacks do not mean failure. Sometimes I catch a glimpse of the woman I used to be in the mirror. She looks back at me with a mixture of sadness and hope. I honor her for her strength and for all she endured, but I know that I am not her anymore. I am someone who has survived storms and come through stronger. Someone who has learned to value herself and to walk her own path. This change is not just about pain or loss. It is about gaining clarity, about understanding who I am beyond the roles I played for others. I am more aware of my emotions now. I feel deeply, but I also regulate my reactions. I am learning to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. I am more compassionate not only toward others but toward myself. I recognize that I am human and that mistakes are part of life. This new self respects her limits and celebrates her strengths. She embraces imperfections and sees them as part of her unique story. I also feel a renewed sense of purpose. I want to live intentionally, to make choices that align with my values and dreams. I am not driven by fear or the need for approval anymore. Instead, I am guided by hope and self-belief. This change has affected how I view my past. I no longer see it as a burden but as a teacher. Each experience, even the painful ones, has contributed to my growth. I am learning to tell my story with honesty and without shame. I want to own my journey, knowing that it has made me who I am today. I also recognize that this transformation is ongoing. I will continue to learn and evolve. There will be challenges ahead, but I face them with confidence. I am proud of the woman I am becoming. Proud of her resilience, her wisdom, and her heart. I know that I am worthy of love, respect, and happiness. And I am ready to welcome them into my life, This is the gift of change, not losing oneself but finding a deeper, truer self. I am not the same. I am better. In the darkest moments, even the smallest light can shine brightly. I discovered this truth slowly, like a gentle flicker in a quiet room. After all the pain, confusion, and heartbreak, I finally saw a small light appear at the edge of my life. It was fragile and faint, but it was enough to guide me forward. For many weeks I had felt lost in a fog of sadness. The weight of loneliness and betrayal pressed down on me, making it hard to breathe or see clearly. Every day seemed heavy, and hope felt distant. But that small light, unexpected and unassuming, began to grow. It came in a simple moment. I was walking through the garden, feeling the cool breeze, and watching the leaves move gently on the branches. The sun was setting, casting a warm, golden glow across the sky. In that peaceful scene, something inside me shifted. I realized that this light was not something outside myself. It was a spark of hope that I carried within. It was the part of me that refused to give up, even when everything felt broken. I started to notice small things that brought me joy: morning birdsong, the taste of fresh tea, the soft pages of a good book. These little moments became beacons, reminding me that life could still hold beauty and meaning. The light also came from within my own heart. I found courage to dream again, even if only in quiet thoughts. I began to imagine a future where I could be happy, free, and whole. This small light was not a cure for all my pain. It did not erase the scars or the memories. But it was a beginning, a gentle invitation to move forward. I remembered times when I had felt this light before, during difficult chapters of my life. It was always there, waiting patiently for me to find it. Sometimes I had ignored it or hidden it away, but now I welcomed it warmly. With this light came new strength. I felt more willing to face my days with open eyes and an open heart. I could smile more easily, laugh sometimes, and even feel grateful for small blessings. I began to take better care of myself. I ate healthier meals, took walks outside, and rested when I needed. These acts of kindness toward myself fed the light and made it grow stronger. The light also encouraged me to reach out to others. I called an old friend and spoke honestly about my feelings. We laughed and cried together, and I felt connected again. It was a reminder that even when I was alone, I was never truly isolated. The world still held people who cared, and I could build new relationships based on trust and respect. Sometimes the light flickered and dimmed. Difficult memories or loneliness would creep back in, making me feel unsure. But I learned to be patient with myself. I knew that healing is not a straight path. I practiced breathing deeply, focusing on the present moment, and reminding myself of this small light within. I held on to it like a precious treasure. This light also helped me forgive others who had hurt me, and forgive myself for mistakes I had made. Forgiveness lifted a heavy burden and made room for peace. I thought about how this light could shine for others too. I realized that my story, with all its pain and growth, might inspire someone else who felt lost or alone. This thought gave me purpose. It made me want to share my experiences, to offer comfort and hope. The small light became a symbol of resilience. No matter what darkness came, it was possible to find a way through. It was a promise that life could improve. I started to dream bigger dreams, not of escaping pain, but of creating a life filled with love, meaning, and joy. This light taught me to be gentle with myself and to celebrate every small victory. Each step forward, no matter how small, was important. I felt gratitude for the chance to begin again, to rewrite my story with hope and strength. I knew that this light would grow brighter with time, that I could nurture it every day with kindness, courage, and love. And so, I held this small light close, letting it guide me into the future. One step at a time, one moment at a time. The journey was far from over, but now I was ready to move forward with hope in my heart and light in my soul. Starting over is never easy. It feels like stepping into unknown territory with shaky legs and a cautious heart. But I knew I had to begin again. After all the storms I had weathered, it was time to plant new seeds and watch them grow. The first step was the hardest. I woke one morning with a quiet resolve to change my routine, my habits, and my mindset. I decided to focus on self-care, not as a luxury, but as a necessity. I began by waking up earlier than usual. The mornings were peaceful and still. I took long, deep breaths, feeling the cool air fill my lungs. This simple act grounded me. It reminded me that each day was a fresh start. I made a habit of drinking warm water with lemon. It was a small ritual, but it made me feel cared for. I prepared healthy meals, focusing on nourishing my body. Cooking became a form of meditation. Chopping vegetables, stirring pots, and smelling spices helped me stay present. Exercise was another important part of my new beginning. I started walking around the neighborhood, slowly at first, then with more energy. The sun on my face and the rhythm of my steps lifted my spirits. I also took time to journal every morning. Writing my thoughts, fears, and hopes helped me understand my feelings better. It was a way to clear my mind and set positive intentions for the day. The house, once heavy with memories, began to feel lighter. I decluttered, donating things I no longer needed. The space around me reflected the changes inside me. I created a small corner with plants and candles, a peaceful place where I could sit quietly. One day, I signed up for a local art class. Painting had always interested me, but I had never made time for it. The colors, the brushes, and the creative process felt like therapy. I found joy in creating something with my own hands. I also reached out to old friends I had lost touch with. I apologized for my silence and shared how much I missed their presence. Reconnecting brought warmth and laughter back into my life. As I began again, I faced moments of doubt. Sometimes old fears whispered that I was not strong enough. Sometimes loneliness crept in. But I reminded myself that healing is a journey, not a destination. I learned to celebrate small victories. Getting out of bed on difficult days, making a healthy choice, or simply smiling at a stranger were reasons to feel proud. I found comfort in routines but allowed myself flexibility. I understood that growth is not about perfection but progress. This new beginning also meant redefining my relationships. I set clear boundaries with people who did not respect my growth. I surrounded myself with those who lifted me up and believed in my potential. I stopped apologizing for my needs or feelings. Instead, I expressed them calmly and confidently. This honesty built stronger connections and deepened trust. One of the most important lessons I learned was to forgive. Forgive myself for past mistakes and forgive those who had hurt me. Forgiveness was not about forgetting, but about freeing myself from bitterness. I started to dream again. Not big, overwhelming dreams, but simple hopes like traveling to a nearby town, learning a new recipe, or reading a new book each month. Each day felt like a step forward, even when the path was unclear. I learned to trust the process and have faith in myself. I also found new sources of inspiration. I listened to podcasts, read books, and watch talks about personal growth. These stories reminded me that I was not alone in my struggles. My sense of purpose slowly returned. I wanted to help others who face similar challenges. I volunteered at a local community center, offering support and companionship to lonely seniors. This work filled my heart and reminded me of my own strength. It showed me that beginnings are possible at any age. I am not the same woman who felt lost and powerless months ago. I am someone who chooses hope, even when it is hard. Someone who believes in the possibility of happiness and peace. Beginning again is an act of courage. It means facing uncertainty with an open heart. It means trusting that the future holds good things. I am grateful for this new chapter, for the chance to rebuild and rediscover myself. Every morning, when I open my eyes, I say quietly, "Today is a new day." And I mean it. I am beginning again with strength, with hope, and with love. Just as I was beginning to find my footing, the past came knocking again. It was not a sudden storm, but a quiet knock on the door. He tried to come back into my life, and it stirred up feelings I thought I had buried deep. I saw him one afternoon, when I least expected it. I was sitting in my favorite chair, reading a book, when the doorbell rang. I was surprised to see him standing there. His face showed a mix of regret and hesitation. I could tell he was unsure if I would welcome him or shut the door in his face. He said he wanted to talk, that he missed the family and hoped we could find a way to move forward. His voice was soft, but I could hear the weight behind his words. For A moment I felt a flicker of old feelings, hope, confusion, and pain. I wanted to believe he had changed. Maybe he had learned from his mistakes and was truly sorry. But I also remembered the hurt, the betrayal. And the nights I had spent crying alone. I invited him to sit down, but my heart was cautious. I wanted to hear what he had to say, but I was not ready to trust him again. He spoke about the difficulties he had faced. How he realized he had taken me for granted. How he regretted charging me rent in my own home and the tension it caused between us. He said he wanted to make amends. Listening to him was hard. Part of me wanted to believe his words. Another part wanted to protect myself from more pain. I noticed how nervous he was, avoiding my eyes at times. I asked questions. Honest questions. About his intentions and if he really understood how much he hurt me. He answered carefully, trying not to say the wrong thing. As the conversation went on, I felt my emotions rising. I wanted to tell him how deeply his actions affected me, how it broke my trust. But I also wanted to stay calm and composed. I told him that forgiveness would take time, that rebuilding trust was not easy. He nodded, understanding that I was not ready to just forget and move on. He said he would wait, that he was willing to work for it. But I knew deep down that waiting was not a solution. I needed to decide what was best for me. After he left, I sat quietly thinking about everything. I realized that his return was a test, a chance to see if I was truly ready to open my heart again. I understood that I had changed. I was not the same woman who once accepted pain without question. I had grown stronger, more aware of my worth. This made me feel proud. Proud that I could face this difficult moment with honesty and courage. I also realized that healing is not about rushing to fix things. It is about setting boundaries and choosing what is right for your soul. I decided to take my time, to focus on myself and my happiness, to not let fear or hope rush me into decisions. I reminded myself that love should bring peace, not anxiety. Trust should feel safe, not uncertain. If he wanted to be part of my life again, he needed to respect my journey and the changes I had made. The experience taught me a valuable lesson. Sometimes people try to come back, but you are no longer the same. You have grown, and you must protect your light. I also learned that saying no is okay. Saying no to people or situations that do not serve your well-being. Most importantly, I learned to listen to my heart, to trust my feelings and instincts. This was my life, my home, and my peace. I was the one who deserved respect and kindness. I understood that letting someone back in does not mean losing yourself. It means choosing carefully with strength and clarity. As days passed, the small light inside me grew stronger. It was no longer just hope, it was wisdom. I continued to take care of myself, to build a life filled with meaning and joy. I knew that whatever happened with him, I would be okay. Because I was learning to love myself first. This was a powerful change, one that gave me peace and confidence. He tried to come back, but I was ready. Ready to protect my heart, ready to choose myself, and that made all the difference. The woman who faced him that day was not the same woman who had endured months of pain and uncertainty. I am different now. I carry new strength inside me, strength that comes from hardship, healing, and growth. It was not a sudden change. It was gradual, like the slow turning of the seasons. Each day added a small piece to my new self, a layer of wisdom and calm that I had never known before. I began to notice this difference in my thoughts. I no longer doubted my worth or questioned my feelings. I trusted myself to make decisions that honored my well-being. I stopped seeking approval from others. Instead, I learned to approve of myself. This was a powerful shift. It changed how I saw the world and how I related to those around me. My emotions became clearer. I could feel sadness without letting it consume me. I could feel anger without losing control. I could even feel hope without fear of disappointment. I became more patient with myself and others. I learned that healing is not a race but a journey. Sometimes progress looks like a small step backward before moving forward again. This patience helped me deal with difficult moments. When old memories surfaced, I did not run away. I faced them gently, acknowledging the pain and then letting it go, I also became more aware of my boundaries. I knew what I would accept and what I would not. Saying no was no longer hard. It was necessary. This new awareness gave me peace. I stopped feeling responsible for fixing other people's problems or changing them. I focused on my own path. My relationships changed too. I surrounded myself with people who respected my growth and supported my journey. I let go of those who brought negativity or doubt. This was not easy. Letting go of familiar people, even if they hurt me, felt like losing a part of myself. But I understood that some endings are needed for new beginnings. I started to speak up more clearly. I expressed my feelings honestly and calmly. I stopped hiding my needs or pretending everything was fine when it was not. This honesty deepened my connections. People who truly cared responded with kindness and respect. Others stepped away, and I accepted that too. I also discovered new interests and passions. I explored hobbies that brought me joy and peace. These activities filled my time with positive energy. I took better care of my health, both body and mind. I ate well, exercised regularly, and made time for rest. I practiced mindfulness and gratitude every day. These habits strengthened me.
They
Reminded me that I deserved care and kindness, especially from myself. I noticed a change in how I viewed my son, too. I still felt hurt by his actions, but the pain no longer controlled me. I could see him with clearer eyes, flawed, confused, but still my child. This allowed me to hold both love and distance at the same time. I wanted the best for him, but would no longer accept disrespect or control. I realized that loving someone does not mean losing yourself. It means caring for them without forgetting your own needs. This balance gave me freedom. Freedom to be myself without guilt or fear. I began to dream again, not just about others, but about my own life. I thought about what I wanted, what made me happy, and what gave my life meaning. These dreams were small but powerful. They reminded me that my story was still unfolding, and I had the pen in my hand. I understood that being different now was not about being perfect. It was about being real with myself and others. I embraced my imperfections as part of my strength. I learned that vulnerability could be courage. I also found peace in solitude. Being alone no longer felt lonely. It felt like a chance to reconnect with myself and recharge. This new version of me was calmer and more confident. She faced challenges with grace and hope. She knew that life was not always easy, but she was ready. I am different now. I am stronger, wiser, and kinder to myself. This change did not erase the past, but it transformed it. The pain became a teacher. The scars became marks of survival. I am proud of how far I have come. Proud that I chose growth over fear. Proud that I chose to believe in myself. I know there will be hard days ahead, but I also know that I have the strength to face them. I am not the same woman who once felt powerless. I am a woman who knows her worth and will protect it. I am different now, and this difference is my greatest gift. The moment I decided to choose myself was quiet but powerful. It was not a loud declaration or dramatic scene. Instead, it was a calm, steady choice made deep inside my heart. For years, I had put others first: my son, my family, my responsibilities. I thought that was my role as a mother and a woman. But slowly, I began to understand that I had forgotten the most important person, myself. Choosing myself meant saying yes to my own needs, dreams, and happiness. It meant setting boundaries that protected my peace. It meant no longer accepting pain as a part of love. This was not easy. I felt guilt at first, guilt for wanting more, guilt for thinking about myself in a way that felt selfish, but I learned that self-care is not selfish, it is necessary. When I take care of myself, I am stronger and more able to care for others. I began by making small changes. I allowed myself to rest when I was tired. I stopped apologizing for taking time to heal. I started to say no to things that drained me. No to requests that felt unfair. No to conversations that brought me down. Saying no was like opening a door to freedom. It felt strange at first, but soon it became natural. I chose to spend time doing things that brought me joy. I walked in the park, read books, and cooked meals I loved. These simple acts filled me with energy. They reminded me that life can be beautiful, even in difficult times. Choosing myself also meant forgiving myself. Forgiving the mistakes I made. Forgiving the times I was too weak or too scared. I understood that I was human. That I had done my best with what I knew at the time. This forgiveness lifted a heavy burden from my shoulders. It allowed me to move forward without shame. I also chose to let go of relationships that hurt me. I realized that not everyone is meant to stay in our lives forever. Some people bring lessons, but not peace. I made space for those who truly cared and respected me. Choosing myself meant being honest about what I wanted. I spoke my truth gently, but firmly. I stopped pretending to be okay when I was not. I shared my feelings with people I trusted. This honesty built deeper connections. It helped me find support and understanding. I also began to trust my intuition. I listened to the quiet voice inside that told me what was right. This inner guidance became my compass. It helped me make decisions with confidence. Choosing myself was an act of courage. It required me to face fears and doubts, but each time I chose myself, I felt stronger and more alive. I learned that self-love is a journey, not a destination. It is a daily choice to be kind and patient with yourself. I know there will be days when I forget this. Days when old habits try to take over, but I am committed to choosing myself again and again. This choice has changed everything. It has given me peace where there was once pain. It has given me hope where there was once fear. I am not alone. Many women face moments when they must choose themselves. If you are listening to this story, know that you are worthy of love and care. You deserve to put yourself first without guilt or shame. Choosing yourself is the greatest gift you can give to your soul. It is the foundation of healing and happiness. So today, I choose myself. I choose my peace, my joy, and my strength, and I encourage you to do the same. Because when you choose yourself, you open the door to a life filled with love, starting with the love you give to yourself. A new day dawned, and with it came a quiet sense of calm. The air felt different, lighter, as if the weight of past troubles had begun to lift. I smiled, not because I forgot the pain, but because I survived it. The morning sunlight filtered softly through the curtains. I sat by the window, holding a warm cup of tea, feeling the peaceful stillness inside me. This moment was mine, a small victory after so much struggle. I remembered how, not long ago, every day had felt like a battle. The fear, the doubts, the endless questions. But today was different. Today I felt hope. I took a deep breath and looked around my home. The walls held memories, some joyful, some painful. But they also held stories of strength and resilience. Stories I had written with every choice I made. This new day was a chance to write a new chapter. A chapter where I was the author of my own life. I thought about the past and all I had endured. The hurt from my son charging me rent in my own home. The betrayal that shook me to my core. The loneliness that followed. All of it had tested me. Yet here I was, standing stronger, clearer, and more at peace. I realized that healing does not mean forgetting. It means accepting the past and allowing it to shape you, but not define you. I stood up and walked outside into the fresh morning air. The garden was blooming, filled with color and life. It reminded me that growth is possible, even after the hardest winters. I touched the petals gently and smiled. Life, like these flowers, can bloom again even when it seems unlikely. I decided to make this day about myself, about peace, about small joys that I had ignored for too long. I planned a simple walk in the park later, a visit to a nearby cafe, and some quiet reading time. Nothing grand, but everything meaningful. As I moved through my day, I noticed how different things felt. The sunlight warmed my face, the birds sang softly, and the breeze carried a promise of new beginnings. I found comfort in these small moments. They were reminders that life moves forward, even when we feel stuck. I called a close friend to share my thoughts. Her voice was warm and encouraging. We laughed together, and for the first time in a long time, I felt connected. This new day also gave me clarity about my relationships. I understood who truly mattered and who I needed to distance myself from. I felt no anger, only acceptance. Acceptance that some people may never understand or change, and that was okay. I learned that peace comes not from changing others, but from changing how we respond. As evening approached, I sat quietly with a journal, writing down my feelings. Helped me see how far I had come. I wrote about my fears, my hopes, and my plans. Putting words on paper made my thoughts clearer and lighter. I promised myself to keep moving forward, one day at a time. This new day was a gift, a reminder that after darkness, light always returns. I knew challenges would come again. Life is never without difficulties, but I also knew I was ready. Ready to face whatever came with strength and grace. I smiled again, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. Gratitude for my journey, my growth, and the new day ahead. She smiled. Not because she forgot, but because she survived. Saying thank you felt different now. It was no longer just a polite phrase or a habit. It was a deep expression of gratitude from my heart to the world around me. I thought about the people who had been part of my journey. Some had hurt me, some had helped me, and some had simply been there when I needed them most. To my son, I found a place of forgiveness. Though our relationship had been painful, I understood that gratitude and anger could coexist. I was grateful for the lessons I had learned. Even through the hardest moments. To my friends who stood by me, I felt endless appreciation. Their support was like a warm light in my darkest hours. They listened without judgment, offered comfort, and reminded me of my worth when I forgot. I also thanked myself. It was the hardest but most important thank you of all. I thanked myself for surviving the storms, for choosing to heal, and for never giving up on my own happiness. Saying thank you was an act of healing. It helped me release bitterness and open my heart to peace. I remembered a moment early in my journey when I felt so lost. I did not think I could move forward. But small acts of kindness like a smile from a stranger or a kind word from a friend gave me hope. Now, I saw those moments clearly. They were like stepping stones on my path to freedom. Gratitude gave me strength. It reminded me that even in pain, there is something to appreciate. I started a gratitude journal. Each day, I wrote down 3 things I was thankful for. Sometimes they were big things, like a good conversation or a moment of laughter. Sometimes they were small things, like the warmth of sunlight or a cup of tea. Writing these simple things changed how I saw my life. It shifted my focus from what was missing to what was present. I found joy in the little details, the sound of rain, the softness of my favorite blanket, the taste of fresh fruit. Saying thank you also connected me to others in a deeper way. I began to express my gratitude directly to people around me. I told my son I was proud of him even though we had our struggles. I thanked my friends for their patience and love. I thanked neighbors who offered a friendly smile. These words opened doors to healing and understanding. They helped rebuild bridges that had seemed broken beyond repair. Gratitude became a daily practice, a way to live more fully and kindly. It did not erase the past, but it softened its edges. It allowed me to move forward with grace. I realized that saying thank you was a gift I could give freely to myself and to others. It was a way to honor the journey, no matter how difficult it had been. One afternoon, I sat quietly in my garden, surrounded by blooming flowers. I closed my eyes and silently thanked the universe for this new chapter in my life. The peace I felt in that moment was profound. It was a sign that healing was real and lasting. I understood that gratitude was not about ignoring pain. It was about finding light within darkness. This light guided me, gave me hope, and helped me grow. As the days passed, I continued to practice gratitude. I noticed how it changed me. I became more patient, kinder, and more hopeful. I felt connected to life in a way I never had before. Saying thank you taught me humility and strength. It reminded me that every experience, good or bad, shapes who we are. I knew my journey was far from over. There would still be challenges, moments of doubt, and times of sadness, but gratitude gave me a foundation, steady place to return to when storms came. I smiled softly as I thought about how far I had come. I said thank you, not only for what I had, but for who I was becoming. I encourage you to find things to be thankful for today. Even small things can change your heart. Gratitude is a powerful healer. It opens the door to peace and joy. When we say thank you, we honor ourselves and The world around us, and in that moment, we take another step forward on the path to healing. Forgiving myself was the hardest step of all. It was not easy to face my own mistakes and shortcomings. For a long time, I carried guilt and regret like heavy chains around my heart. I thought forgiveness was only for others, but I learned it was most important to offer it to myself. I had blamed myself for many things, the decisions I made, the moments I hesitated, and the times I felt weak. I thought I should have done more or been stronger. But holding on to these feelings only kept me trapped. One quiet evening, I sat alone in my living room, the house calm and still. I looked in the mirror and asked myself a simple question: can I forgive the woman I see? The answer was not
Easy.
I wanted to say yes, but my heart was heavy. I took a deep breath and remembered that forgiveness is a process, not a one-time event. It is a journey that takes patience, kindness, and courage. I began by speaking gently to myself. I said, I forgive you for the mistakes you made. I forgive you for the times you felt lost and afraid. You did your best with what you had. These words were strange at first, but as I repeated them, they began to soften the pain inside. I realized that self-forgiveness is an act of love, not weakness. I thought about the lessons I had learned from my past. Each mistake had taught me something valuable. They had helped me grow stronger and wiser. Forgiving myself also meant letting go of the what-ifs that haunted me. What if I had acted differently? What if I had spoken up sooner? These questions had no answers, only endless regret. I decided to release them. I could not change the past, but I could change how I live today. I wrote a letter to myself, full of compassion and understanding. In it, I acknowledged my struggles and praised my resilience. Writing the letter was like giving myself a warm hug. I kept the letter closed and read it whenever I felt doubt or sadness. It became a reminder that I was worthy of forgiveness and love. I also practiced mindfulness and meditation. These moments of quiet helped me connect with my inner self and find peace. I learned that forgiving myself was not about forgetting or excusing mistakes. It was about accepting that I am human, imperfect, and learning. I began to notice changes. In my life, I was less harsh with myself and more patient. I stopped comparing myself to others and focused on my own journey. Forgiveness opened a new door. It allowed me to heal deeply and fully. I could feel a new lightness in my heart. The heavy chains were breaking. I understood that self-forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves. It frees us to live fully and joyfully. I felt grateful for this new beginning. It gave me strength to face the future with hope. Some days were harder than others. The old feelings of guilt would sometimes return. But now I had tools to cope. I reminded myself that forgiveness is a path, not a destination. Every step forward was progress. I also shared my journey with close friends. Their support and understanding helped me stay strong. Talking openly about forgiveness made me realize how common these struggles are. I was not alone. I found comfort in knowing that many people carry similar burdens and that healing is possible. Forgiving myself made me more compassionate toward others. I saw their faults and mistakes with kindness instead of judgment. This compassion deepened my relationships and brought more peace to my life. As time passed, I felt a deep sense of freedom. I was no longer bound by shame or regret. I could breathe more easily and enjoy the present moment. Forgiveness gave me a chance to rebuild my life. On a foundation of love and acceptance, I smiled softly as I looked forward. I knew there would be challenges ahead, but I was ready to meet them with an open heart and a forgiving spirit. I encourage you to try forgiving yourself today. It may feel difficult, but it is worth every effort. Self-forgiveness is the key to healing and peace. Remember, you are human, you are learning, you are worthy of love. When you forgive yourself, you open the door to a brighter, freer life. Freedom felt new to me. It was not the freedom of wildness or chaos. Instead, it was a quiet, gentle freedom that grew slowly inside my heart. I realized that I was free from the past, from pain, and from the heavy burdens I had carried for so long. For many years, I felt trapped by expectations, by mistakes, and by the judgments of others. I thought freedom meant escape, but now I understood it meant acceptance. Accepting myself, my story, and my place in the world. One morning, I walked barefoot in my garden. The soft earth felt cool beneath my feet. The sun was warm on my skin. I breathed deeply, feeling a calm joy spread through me. In that moment, I felt truly alive. Freedom was not about running away. It was about standing tall and owning my life. It was about choosing happiness despite difficulties. I remembered how I once believed that my worth depended on others' approval. I lived in fear of failure and rejection. Now I felt a new strength. I was enough, just as I was. I found freedom. In small moments, listening to birdsong, watching the clouds drift, sipping tea in the morning light. These simple joys reminded me that life is precious. Freedom also meant setting boundaries. I learned to say no without guilt. I protected my time and energy. This was a new way of loving myself. I stopped trying to please everyone. I focused on what mattered most to me. This gave me peace and confidence. Dancing alone in my living room became a favorite way to celebrate freedom. I moved slowly, feeling the music in my body. There was no judgment, only joy. This freedom was a gift I gave myself after a long struggle. It was the reward for choosing healing and growth. I reflected on how far I had come. The pain that once controlled me was now a quiet memory. I carried the lessons, but not the suffering. Being free meant I could create new dreams. I could explore new passions and interests without fear. I began to see the future with hope instead of worry. I felt excited about possibilities instead of stuck in the past. Freedom also meant forgiving others who had hurt me. Holding on to anger only trapped me further. By letting go, I opened space for peace. I wrote in my journal about freedom every day. It helped me stay connected to this new feeling. Sometimes freedom felt fragile. Old fears and doubts would creep in. But I reminded myself that freedom is a practice, a daily choice to live authentically. I surrounded myself with people who supported my freedom. Their encouragement made my journey easier. I shared my story with others who struggled. Hearing their experiences reminded me that freedom is possible for everyone. I realized that true freedom is not about control. It is about surrendering to life and trusting myself. I smiled as I thought about the future. I no longer feared what might come. I was ready to face life with an open heart. Freedom gave me courage to be myself fully. It allowed me to express my feelings honestly. I felt a deep connection to the world around me. This connection brought meaning and joy. I understood that freedom is a journey without a final destination. It is a path we walk every day. I took a moment to thank myself for choosing freedom. It was a brave choice, and I honored it. Being free meant I could love myself without conditions. I could live with purpose and peace. I felt light and hopeful. The chains of the past were gone. I knew that challenges would come, but freedom gave me strength to meet them. Walking barefoot in the garden, I felt the earth beneath me and the sky above. I was grounded and free. This moment was a reminder that I am alive, I am whole, and I am free. I invite you to find your freedom too. It may be waiting in small moments and simple joys. Freedom is possible for you, just as it became possible for me. Choose to be free. Choose to love yourself fully. Choose to live with courage and hope. Knowing who I am was a journey that took many years. It was not something I understood immediately, nor was it clear to me at the start. For a long time, I felt lost and uncertain. I changed myself to fit what others wanted, forgetting my own heart, but now I stand with confidence. I know who I am. I am a woman who has faced many challenges and survived them. Each experience shaped me, teaching me lessons about strength, love, and forgiveness. I have cried and laughed, fallen and risen. I have learned to listen to my inner voice and trust it. I am not defined by my past mistakes or by what others say about me. I am defined by how I choose to live today. I am the sum of my values, hopes, and dreams. I am someone who cares deeply but also protects her own peace. I remember times when I doubted myself. I questioned my worth and my decisions. I tried to be perfect to please my family and friends. But I now understand that perfection is not real. It is a mask that hides our true selves. I have shed that mask. I have allowed myself to be vulnerable and honest. This is the real me, imperfect, but whole. Knowing who I am means accepting my strengths and weaknesses. It means embracing my emotions without shame. It means standing up for what I believe in, even if it is difficult. I have learned to say no when something does not feel right. I have learned to ask for help when I need it. I have learned that I am not alone, and that it is okay to rely on others. Sometimes I am someone who values kindness, honesty, and loyalty. I try to live with these values every day. They guide my actions and decisions. I am also a woman who loves deeply. My heart has room for many people, but I have learned to protect it from harm. I choose to give my love to those who respect and cherish me. I know who I am because I have looked inside myself without fear. I have faced my fears, my regrets, and my hopes. I have sat quietly with my thoughts and listened. Sometimes I write in my journal to help me understand my feelings. Writing is a way for me to speak to myself clearly. It helps me grow and see things more clearly. I have found that knowing myself brings peace. When I am sure of who I am, I do not need constant approval from others. I'm comfortable in my own skin. I have also discovered that knowing myself means accepting change. I am not the same person I was 10 or 20 years ago, and that is okay. Life is a journey of growth, and I welcome it. I am proud of how far I have come. I am proud of my courage to face pain and choose healing. I am proud of the woman I am. Knowing who I am has helped me build stronger relationships. When I am true to myself, I attract people who love me for who I am. These relationships bring joy and support. I have also learned to forgive those who did not understand me. Holding on to anger only hurts me. Forgiveness frees my heart. I know that I still have much to learn, and that is exciting. Life offers endless opportunities to grow and improve. I feel grateful for my journey. Every step, even the painful ones, brought me closer to understanding myself. I want to share a message with you. Take time to know yourself. Listen to your heart. Do not be afraid of your emotions. They are part of who you are. Remember, you are unique and valuable. Your story matters, and you deserve to be happy. Knowing who I am has made me stronger and more compassionate. It has taught me to be patient with myself and others. I hope my story inspires you to begin your own journey of self-discovery. You do not need to have all the answers now.
Take small steps every day.
Be gentle with yourself. As I close this part of my story, I feel a deep sense of peace. I am ready to embrace the future with open arms. I know who I am. I am enough. As I reach the end of my story, I want to share a message from my heart. This message is not just about me. It is about you and anyone who has ever felt lost, hurt, or uncertain. It is about hope, courage, and the power of love. Life is not easy. Sometimes it feels like the weight of the world is on our shoulders. Family can be complicated. People we love may disappoint us. We may face pain that seems too big to bear. But in those moments, you are not alone. I want you to know that your feelings are valid. It is okay to feel sadness, fear, or anger. These emotions do not make you weak, they make you human. It is important to honor them, to understand them, and to let yourself feel them fully. At the same time, remember that pain is not forever. Healing is possible, even when it feels distant. Healing begins with small steps like speaking your truth, asking for help, or simply taking a deep breath and facing one more day. I have learned that strength does not mean never falling. Strength means rising again, even when it is hard. It means choosing hope when it is easier to give up. You have that strength inside you. It may be hidden now, but it is there. Trust yourself. Listen to your inner voice. You know more than you think. Your heart can guide you to the right path even if it takes time to see it clearly. Forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself. Holding on to anger or resentment only keeps you chained to the past. Letting go can be difficult, but it opens the door to freedom. You deserve that freedom. Love yourself. This may be the hardest lesson of all. Love means kindness and patience. For yourself. It means accepting your imperfections and celebrating your unique qualities. You are worthy of love and respect, starting with the love you give yourself. Set boundaries that protect your peace. It is okay to say no. It is okay to put yourself first sometimes. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Taking care of yourself allows you to be stronger for others. Be patient with your journey. Growth is not a straight line. There will be setbacks and challenges. These moments do not mean failure. They mean you are learning and moving forward. Surround yourself with people who support and uplift you. You deserve relationships filled with respect and kindness. Distance yourself gently from those who bring harm or negativity. Remember, your story is important. Your experiences, your lessons, and your voice matter. Sharing your story may help others feel less alone. Keep hope alive in your heart. Even in the darkest times, a small light can shine. Hold on to that light. Let it guide you. Celebrate your victories, no matter how small. Each step forward is a triumph. You are stronger than you realize. I hope my story has touched your heart and reminded you of your own strength. You are capable of great things. You have the power to create the life you want. As you listen to this story, I invite you to reflect on your own journey. What have you learned? What strength have you discovered? What dreams do you still hold? Thank you for joining me on this path. Your presence here means more than words can say. If this story has helped you, please remember to subscribe. Tomorrow, I will share something special that I hope will inspire you even more. May you find peace, love, and freedom in your life. May you know who you are and feel proud of your journey. This is not the end. It is a new beginning. You are enough. You are worthy. You are loved.